Welcome to the Kingdom Point of View. Here we are again. We have our lovely guests in the audience today. We have some callers on the line just as well. We appreciate everyone for tuning in on the Kingdom Point of View. We got some of the emails. We even got some of the people who have came in the audience today who respond and want to talk. But we have our lovely panel up here today that's going to assist me today and probably give me a chance to just kick back a little bit more and take it like a bed of ease. And sometimes I even have that out of my audience, because one thing about the truth, if it is the truth, it will line up on the Kingdom Point of View, and we'll take it however it comes. But we definitely open for all conversation. We have one of our moderators right here, Ms. Mosley right here, and our other moderator on the other side today that's going to help us just as well, Mr. Butler. And they're up here taking the adversity challenge just like me, never knowing what type of question we're going to get, but we definitely going to anchor ourselves in the kingdom principles and get the best response that we can according to the word of God. So one of our guests, we got a young lady out there right now. I see a fan, and what you got for us, young lady? Give us a topic today. See what we're going to do. What you have for us?
And to everyone that's on here, one of the topics today that I actually wanted to discuss was why do men think it's a difference with the women's behavior by race?
Okay. And I would take that from this perspective, and I want to be clear. I mean, from experiences and a lot of conversations I had, there are some personality exchanges when I hear about race. But in study, I've learned even deeper. I'm gonna relate it more to culture, because the distinctions in races, we have all behaviors in different races, which are the same. It's just that a lot of people haven't experienced it. So based on the question that you're saying, the experiences that you have dealt with, and we will get feedback from you with that question, because we definitely want to deal with whichever audience member asks us a question today. But a lot of times what has happened fundamentally, I would say just from that, is that they haven't really got the right ideas to understand that there are just males and females, men and women. And so once they understand that these behavior happens, then they'll get a better understanding on what's actually taking place. On the Kingdom Point of View, we're going to break down how, according to God, how it should be dealt with when it comes to a race and different cultural situation, because that's throughout the whole Bible, dealing in cultures that had differences in blending at certain times, and then there became a time to where they started blending later on. So all of it has its place, and I'm sure that's the same influence and mentality that's happening today, but it's learning to find a balance on a time and a place and what's in best interest according to the word of God. I'm gonna allow any of my other panel members to start or have any comments on that as well before we get a little more meat on the bone, as we're gonna say, as we go forward. You got something for us, Ms. Mosley?
Just want to chime in. I mean, you were pretty much thinking I was thinking in terms of culture.
Okay.
I think that it's okay for us to recognize that there are some similarities with people who are of the same culture, but we do have to understand that they may not be across the board. But absolutely, you know, there are going to be some things, if we come from the same culture, that we're going to automatically understand, right, and that's okay. But the problem comes when we start to discriminate on people as a whole. Just for instance, like just saying black women, all black women. And I share personally in our family, because anybody who knows me knows that my brother is married to a Caucasian woman.
Correct.
And so in our family, we have that, you know, and we come together with her family, and there are some cultural differences that we have, and we discuss and we embrace those things, so it's okay. But then there's some things that my sister-in-law that she does that I wouldn't have thought she would have done, you know, based on the how do we say the misconceptions
I understand
that I have, the things that I've heard or come to think. I don't want to call it a prejudice, But you know how it is. Just like comedians, they make jokes about white people, they make jokes about black people. So there are certain things that we think, and you know, my sister-in-law has broken a lot of them. As a matter of fact, we have a running joke that says she's black and I'm white.
Right.
So y'all don't read too much into it.
I understand what you're saying.
But that just goes to show that it can always break the mold. But yeah, there are some similarities that we have with cultures that, you know, that go across the board. But there's always going to be somebody that's going to shake it up. And, you know, there's always going to be a black person that's, I don't eat collard greens, or I don't like chicken, or I don't like watermelon, you know. So we can't just automatically assume that all black people or all black women or all Latina women or all Asian women are a certain way because that's what we heard.
Correct. I'm following. Mr. Butler, I know we cleaning it up pretty good. We hope we still got some meat on the bone for you just on the introduction a little bit. Mr. Leah taking it away, but go ahead with us a little bit.
I think you guys raised some interesting points of view from both sides of the perspective about just different cultures and thinking about it from a different perspective. I want to kind of just throw a small little hook in the water just from a clinical side or a mental health side of it.
Okay.
What happens, the reason why most of the time that people think that different cultures, it is a trigger response. And in trigger response, people want to be safe. If you had a wise guy told me if someone walked in the door every time they got hit, that they would eventually be ducking. And so that trigger response to African Americans, whether Caucasian, whoever you may be dating, because that's all you dated, and you had the same type of behavior, and so you'll be led to believe that a certain type of person is this way, and so you may say all this type of people do this, and so you'll start to categorize, or you make what's called polarizing statement to put everybody in the same box. And what happens is you become what's called hypervigilant. That means you're on guard. You're expecting something to happen. And so what inside of us, we have what's called a safety response. And that safety response wants to know, am I safe? We're always scanning with our mental, am I safe? But there's a need in humans, a need and a want for love. But that need and a want for love, you're trying to find who can I, because I was hurt there. Nobody wants to go to a place repeatedly where they've been hurt at or disappointed. So the need for love pushes you back there. And so since it pushes you back to trying to find someone, you try to find someone opposite of your last experience that hurt you. But all people aren't like that. And that's where the kingdom point of view comes in. You have to go back to the checklist. You have to make sure that they're truly a friend, that you're following the standard that Christ has set. So it's not in a race. And what happens is sometimes you meet other women, maybe women that are Filipino, Chinese women, and what you find is a lot of those women have been bred to be subservient, whereas maybe meeting women in America has been more come off with a masculine energy, an energy of not wanting to serve. And so from their perspective, if I could do maybe a Caucasian or somebody who doesn't have the same bite or the dog bark that they're frustrated with, so they're using that, again, it's a trigger response because people don't want to go back through that anymore.
That's good. That's good.
That's good.
What you got?
Hey, well, you know, we have a lot of, you know, I would give anyone in the audience a chance to respond before we do, if there's anything. You can turn their mic on or come to the mic if they have anything. But if not, we can move forward a little bit and give them a chance. So what I will have, and the same thing for the callers, if you want to interject, please let us know just as well. But those are very key components. Even listening back to myself, to what you said, Ms. Mosley and Mr. Butler, those components do raise a lot of issues and little components that makes a difference on people's choices in life. You know, definitely the culture, how they're raised up and what they're used to, or you know, what they experience all the time. What I've noticed a lot of times in counseling sessions and conversations and interactions throughout life, that most people never leave out the box that they were already in. And because of that, they platform one of the people that I know personally that deals with the gyms, they use the term plateau. They plateau themselves or capped out, or that's high as I'm gonna go, that's all I know. So those are the ideas that they're using when it comes to making choices in life. And never going back to, as Mr. Butler pointed about on the kingdom point of view, we're always gonna deal with, you know, the origin steps. You know, we gotta work backwards. What are the origin steps that led you to start believing this component? And I'm sure the young lady in the audience, when she said that, it comes from certain experiences, whether it was, you know, just in life or just noticing certain things personally, because it's not hard to tell these behavior traits, you know, as we begin to uplift our way of thinking out here. You can begin to recognize a lot of details that you never paid attention to before. So in that observation, taking it from the question that she asked, using what she said, I started analyzing. I started seeing what I'm thinking she's saying from that point of view, and now I could see all these things begin to transpire in life. Just over, I could just use a few months when I went to the mall and went shopping or gas station and things these nature, or taking trips, and then now I'm seeing different cultures. I'm seeing different behavior traits, and I started observing, and now I'm seeing in my mind what was taking place, and I could see how the controversies have happened in conversations where I've heard people say, oh, I'm staying on this side, I'm not going on that side. And it triggers, you know, just like the thought of the person in the audience. Why do people think, you know, the race have something to do with it? Because ultimately it starts with the individual. The individual has made a decision, as I said, to platform themselves right there in that box to say, all women like this, just like Mr. Butler stated, the statements that you've made, that they put themselves right there to say, this is where we at. The culture standpoint, this is what we do, like you said. So now, not never having the components to know how to do conflict resolutions, you know, how to create healthy boundaries, knowing how to come to a blended family situation, knowing how to not point the finger at others and start with self, because in most situations it's going to start individual before it comes collective. And so those mentalities, those behavior traits from most of these people that think that way really starts within themselves. So we have to deal with also with the question, as we do on the kingdom point of view. We're going to always point out the principles, then we're going to point out, like you say, through the hook in there. And now we got to deal with the dysfunction part. How do we begin to make some type of traction to deal with the person audience? In the audience, their question, what could actually begin to happen to trying to bring a different point of view to people, to begin to see that at the end of the day, that we got to start with ourselves and change the way we think, so that we don't box ourselves in like that. And culture and the race, everything has its place, just like it does in the Bible, because it's a time and place for everything. Mr. Butler, you want to add something on that?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
You raised something as you were speaking, something came to my mind when you were talking about people trying to find other races, or other races are trying to find that peace. And when you were speaking about self, the reason why people are oftentimes going for other races or someone else is because they're trying to find a path of least resistance. Because you're just talking about self. The work that you'll do on self is the hardest work you'll ever do. It's the most painful work you'll ever do, because you have to deal with yourself. You have to, in order to heal, you have to deal with some ugly places that you don't even want to see. And so that's tough work. And so what they believe, instead of doing the work, it'll be much easier just to find hopefully another path of least resistance. And oftentimes they're in search for, if it is a man big word is respect, well, the lady big word is love. And so they're trying to find the respect. But again, as you said, no conflict resolution, no boundaries, not understanding what you're getting yourself into, and not being willing to do the work. And so as you often say, it starts with going back and doing that work. That's what I want to say.
And we have one of the audience members want to come in. Yes.
Okay. So I did want to piggyback on what you said about men's form of thinking about respect. The thing about it is, what do they actually think respect is considered?
Woo.
What boundaries are considered as a form of respect? Because if the thought process of respecting me as a man and, you know, doing what I say, or don't question me, or I'm grown and I don't have to answer to you, as a thing of not setting boundaries as a man respecting a woman, respecting her as an individual, not by race, but respecting her because you love her, respect her because she's your companion, and then setting those boundaries to respect her in person and when you're not around her. Means protecting her and providing for her and keeping her in a safe place. And do the men understand what a safe place is? Because that's where they go to talking about, you know, inserting race in, as in, I didn't have to deal with this when I was with this race, I don't have to deal with this, or they just like this. Or always considering black women as being more aggressive. Because I think we pretty much was brought up, a lot of our intuition is brought up on our upbringing of what we was taught as a woman, how to behave as a woman, even into the church. As in how to present yourself in church, in person, behind closed doors. You know how to act when you go somewhere. That's how we was raised.
Come on.
You know, and the same aspect of becoming an adulthood and the decision of men, you know, taking the lines of the boundaries of respect is them understanding, learning how to change.
All right.
The changing process.
Wow.
They don't expect the changing process. They want you to put in so much as a woman, but then themselves, they don't want to put out anything.
All right.
But want to be on the receiving side.
That's tough. Mr. Butler, you want to come in? I got something for it. I heard him. Miss Mosley want to help out? Come on with it. That's good.
I'm gonna get in, but I'm gonna give a leader.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know, she said so much like that. You know, originally what I wanted to say, you know, she kind of threw me, but she gave me some more to go on. But
Come on with it.
But anyway, what I was gonna say is it's just really a form of ignorance
All right.
to have that mindset of I'm going to go to another race for this or another race for that. It goes back to what you were saying about an individual, but people are ignorant. So it really takes, it's a kingdom point of view. So it really takes a spiritual awakening for you to even be, for a man or anybody else to even be able to expand their mind to understand. I think it's so funny. Like, I just love the way that God did that. Like, I think it's so funny that He created all of us, all of these different shades, all of these different cultures, but we really ain't that different. You know what I'm saying? So you have to have a spiritual awakening to understand that underneath culture, underneath your preferences, it's just, you're just an individual. Like we all got the same blood, or we got red, but we bleed if we cut yourself. And so you have to have that spiritual awakening. You have to have that relationship with Christ to be able to expand your mind so that you can think outside of these ignorant thoughts and these ignorant misconceptions that we have about if I go to, because the fact of the matter is, you know, you can go over to any race and find somebody that's crazy. I mean, I don't even know how to dress it up. You know, you know, crazy comes in all different shades, colors, or whatever.
All right,
and so what you got to do is, like he mentioned, the checklist. You have to have your kingdom checklist.
Absolutely.
And you got to use your kingdom checklist versus you having that small mindset to say that I'm looking for a color or I'm looking for a nationality or whatever to my liking. And so you got to have that spiritual awakening. I could go even more into what our audience member says about black women, because I am a black woman.
All right, man. Come on.
And there's a reason. Yes, we do have some things may be true that people think about us, but you got to look at the root of how we became to be that way. You think we just woke up angry? No, that's not what happened.
All right, come on.
You know,
now.
it's a lot of things that it go even in black people as a culture. I mean, we had something at the church that talked about transgenerational trauma.
Yep.
Okay, so we have trauma. We have trauma. Black women, we have trauma that has caused us. So you have to be kingdom so that you can look beyond the trauma and understand where that comes from. Not trying to excuse it.
Oh, I understand.
But, you know, like I said, there's so much I could say, but I do want to throw that, you know, just want to throw those things out there that you really have to expand your mind. Look at, it goes back to looking at things from a kingdom perspective when you're looking for your mate.
Correct.
I want to go back to what the audience members asked about the respect, about how a man looks at respect when he's asking for respect, how is a woman supposed to give it, and from the woman's perspective. From the kingdom point of view, we always got to go back to the word. Ephesians 5 is the ruling authority on what it should look like. Ephesians 5:25, it tells the man that we're supposed to love the woman like Christ loved ecclesia, which is the church.
That's right.
But in 5:31-33, it tells a woman she's supposed to respect the man. The question you asked about the man is, does the man look like the man in Genesis? You have to go back and make sure he has kingdom perspective. Oftentimes we deal with people who don't have kingdom perspective, but we're asking for kingdom results.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so you have to go back to find out, do he line up with understanding what God is asking for a man to be? Now there's a level that respect that a lady is supposed to give, but he's also how Christ loved the church. Christ died for the church. So he asked the man to die for that woman. And so there's a level of respect that should be there for both parties. He's laid it out for us what it's supposed to look like kingdom-wise. But what a man is expecting in respect, he's expecting somebody to be there, to push him, to believe that he's going to do it, and to believe in him, and even when it fails sometimes, to encourage him, because we all going to mess up. So sometimes it can come and be perceived as you're asking for perfection. And perfection from a woman is something she can't even give herself. So it becomes, so those are little small triggers. But he should be a protector, a provider. He's supposed to be all those things that women, but it goes both ways. Miss Mosley mentioned about being black women. What you have to still do is go back and unravel what I was going to talk about, which is transgenerational trauma. You have to ask what happened. What caused that trigger? Maybe you saw your mama get beat, maybe your auntie. You seen so many different things. You were in bad relationships. You had relationships that were not kingdom. You had so many different things. And so you start to build a callus around your heart, and you become this person. And even when you meet somebody else, you're still punishing them for what Joe, Larry, Tyrone, Steve, whomever you dealt with did to you. And so you come in with a callus because your response system is saying, I'm going to be safe. I won't be hurt. And so sometimes it can come off with an energy, and that energy is for protection, but you have to go back and ask what happened to you, because when we come into the kingdom, we can be delivered, but that don't mean we're free. So we have to go and deal with the things, because the reason why the children of Israel, it took them 40 years on what should have been a 40-day journey, they had to get Egypt out of them. And so oftentimes the Egypt is still in us, which makes us reach for that. And so going back to that respect and that love, you got to go back to what the words say on it. But also with the respect, we do expect things to be respected, just like a woman expects to be loved, to be protected, to be provided for, to really, God gives the outline. And anytime we want to find out how it's supposed to be done, Dr. Miles Monroe always tells us you have to go back to the manufacturer. And the manufacturer on relationships is God. Marriage was the first institution created by God. I hope that helps.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
That scripture over there in Ephesians, did it say love a black woman or a white woman?
Oh.
Or did it just say a woman?
It's just a woman.
Like Christ.
All
You
right.
do say.
Good
Did it say
point.
that? Did it have any kind of nationality in them?
It doesn't have a national, because at the end of the day, and I know the moderator is going to take us back this way, we really one race, and that's the human race.
Oh, I'm going to break it down for you.
So that's what it all boils, and it's going to come down to personality traits and having that kingdom checklist to make sure that they're on the kingdom. Because you can get a Chinese woman, she just going to say it in a Chinese form, language, the same thing that a black woman may say to you. Sue might say it a different way from where she's from, but it still is going to be translated the same, because what you'll find is the reason why you're going to keep having trouble in a relationship is because you keep bringing you into it.
All right. It's been very good, very good. I'm hearing it all, and I know the audience member have kicked it up real good. If the audience member have something to say, interject. Let us know something before I clean some of that up. You got anything for us? Okay. Well, I go ahead and conclude a little bit right now. All right. And Mr. Butler made a point that I definitely am going to bring it all the way back to the foundation. And Miss Mosley pointed out that was key, because that is true when it comes to the word dealing with the kingdom point of view, that there was no color involved when God actually is speaking to mankind when it comes to how the order of things should be done in the right way. And I'm gonna address the audience members' response first, and then I'm gonna go backwards. When they were speaking from the standpoint where Mr. Butler talked about the callous that the women have, and Ms. Mosley also alluded to the fact that she was a black woman. And so we're just gonna say that women having a callous from where they come from, because all throughout the Bible, the women have always had to fight for their type of value. So that was a callous before any color, just with women, period. So they had a callous on top of a callous, using the same terminology that was there. You know, back in the Old Testament, you know, a woman could be divorced just because she probably sneezed at the table. That's pretty tough, you know. And then now you got generations coming behind that with this type of trauma, saying we just can't hardly say nothing. You know, that was a time where he told them to be quiet in the church, and then they ran with that in scripture, so to speak. You need to be quiet. You know, the man is the authority, he the head. The husband is the head, not just any man walking, you know, according to God. But so now that callous went over a lot of male men and said that, see, I'm the man, I'm the dominator. But in Genesis, as you said, Mr. Butler, well, you know, we need to go back to the beginning of Genesis, so we got to break that down very clear, because they might start reading that Genesis 3. No, the Genesis 2 male and female was in order. The Genesis 3 male and female became out of order. So we want to be specific about that. You know, so that callous have been going on since the beginning of time, meaning that time of mankind being formed in the human body. From that standpoint, once he's sinned, that callous started from there. So we all had a callous, which we're going to know metaphorically was sin. So once man entered into sin, he started going down the wrong aisle, picking up the wrong information, and that created the callous and blocking all the things that God wanted for mankind. And then we were still coming together under all of these type of trauma, as you all are using, from generation to generation. So for the person in the audience, so now coming all the way up to time now, the male men still haven't went back to the origin of understanding. I do believe in my observations, you know, because we've already given the kingdom point of view for us, how God wanted it to be, from Ephesians to understanding, back to culture, back to race. Ms. Moses said there's only one blood in consideration dealing with God from that standpoint, even though I'm going to make that clear right now since I'm saying it. There may be different blood types, but you can actually need a kidney and won't find nobody in your quote unquote same race to give it to you, and they go outside that race. And that will let you know. I learned this I looked at a video one time. This guy gave an example. He called it a bottleneck effect or something like that, dealing with candy, but it was good. But I used the one where I used grandmama soup because of my culture.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
My culture understands soup. So, you know, grandmama cooked with soup. And this point is only designed to show where we're all the same. Yes. Okay? So if you was to dip a spoon or you know, big spoon, and everybody get their bowl of soup, okay? You may have more carrots in it. I may have more potatoes. She may have more green beans. People in the audience have different other vegetables or corn or whatever. But when we taste that soup, it all tastes the same. Those are different quote unquote races. You know, the corn could represent one race, and the potatoes could represent another race. The peas could represent another race. But when we taste it all the same, that's why when you need certain things when it comes to the human body, the color has no effect, because when God created mankind, see, he pulled that man and put the dust over that covering, which man means spirit. When he put that dust suit over, that earth suit, see, all generations came out of that one man. That's what made us all the same, because we all came from one place. So that will eliminate the idea, which I know the audience member is alluding to the fact from the very first question, why do they even think this way? Because women are women, you know, and men are men. And so I can't get out of this session without making clear, I've said in Genesis 2 and Genesis 3, but Miss Mosley loved for me to say this, that man in the beginning is a different type of man than some of the males are actually portraying to be. But they do want, like Mr. Butler said, the benefits of whatever title that they're trying to get for us, the respect and different things from that nature. They do want the benefits and do not want to actually add up to be who they're supposed to be. And from what I'm hearing from the audience member, it sounds like there's some frustration from time dealing or seeing people or just on TV or whatever media or social media thing, that there are too many people trying to reap the benefits, as you're saying, Mr. Butler, and they're not that man that Ms. Mosley loved to hear about. And that's where the problem come in at, and that's why some of those women are not respecting them, because they're not even worthy of respect. That is the term that has to be said, that some of them are requiring, and it has been said from all parties, but they are requiring something that they haven't measured up to. Go ahead, Mr. Butler.
That man is not ignorant.
I guess a question that I'd like to put on the floor.
Put one on that.
Come on.
What happens if the man lines up and the woman is not submissive at all, and the woman don't follow any of those kingdom principles? Because again, it could go both ways. And so that's just a question I want to put on the floor, just for food for thought.
Okay, I got a good food for thought for you. If that man is lined up kingdom-like, correct?
And he's already, let's just say, he's already married to that type. He made before he understood kingdom. Let's just say before he came in the kingdom, he realized that he's with somebody, he's kingdom, but they're not. Or vice versa. He could be man or woman. It's interchangeable.
Okay. All right. Well, I was starting. I know Miss ALEIA. I'm gonna let her finish this part, because this is one of her. I don't heard her say it on a couple of sessions. This ending part. So I'm gonna start with it, and I'm gonna pass the baton to her so she can conclude this part. But you've already started it, like you said, and then you learned kingdom and got an understanding from that standpoint. So we always deal with influence, because that's what we're supposed to do. When Jesus told us to go into the world, you know, we're talking about a world, that's the system, a system of influence. We have to be influential. So once you come into Christ, you know, you have to be Christ-like. Christ was an influence. So we have to have that same type of spirit to try to influence. Now, there may be the case when I pass this baton to Ms. Mosley so she can finish this part, because I love to hear her say this part all the time, that even when you are in a situation, God has already charged us that even if the mate is not even in belief, you still need to stay, because they haven't given you a reason to even get out of it, because there's a lot of components that have to come into play that still deal with certain variables, as long as you doing what you're supposed to do, because you did mention that the man was kingdom, but the other party was not, and they are already in the marriage. And I don't want to misquote it, but I want to say I don't heard Ms. Mosley say it, but I'm going to let her finish out, because she's very passionate. I love to hear her talk about that part right now, that we got to work it out in the kingdom somehow. Come on now.
We got to work it out. Now, if everything is situational. That's one thing I love about God. But the Bible does say that just because a person, your mate, is not believing, is not necessarily a reason for you to leave them. Now, the Bible says to let them go if they want to go. But you have a responsibility as being a kingdom individual to try your best to work that situation out. Now, that's why I say everything is situational, because I don't want anybody to think that if you're in an abusive situation, if you are in, it just depends on what it is. There are certain things that's grounds for divorce, cheating. That's a whole nother.
That's good. It plays a role now. Come on
cheating.
now.
Cheating, there are certain things that the Bible tells us, hey, you got grounds to go on about your business if they're doing that, and cheating is one of them. But everything is situational, because even cheating, you have to be led by God. You have to be led by God, because some people can bounce back, and their relationship be stronger than ever from a cheating situation. But no, just because a person doesn't believe doesn't mean you get to walk out on them. It's something that you need to pray and you need to ask God, and you need to seek God and ask God what you need to do about that situation, and then you need to cover your unbelieving spouse a bit. That don't mean try to strong arm them and beat them over the head with the Bible, but like I said, just because they don't believe, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are to leave them. But if they want to go, let them go. That's the word.
You got some on Miss Butler? I got plenty.
I think that's really good with what y'all are adding. What Miss Mosley has added about trying to definitely be there for that spouse, and as well as what you said too. I think those are really good perspective on trying to figure it out if you have one that's believing. But I think my view would be, once you come into understanding kingdom as much as possible, to try to definitely be there. But if that's not possible, if you have an opportunity, prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth 10 pounds of cure. Okay. So if you get an opportunity again, then you know how to operate with certain principles. Absolutely. Because a wise man told me 99.9 is not 100. And so therefore you want to make sure those things are in line going forward. Because one thing, even if you are in that type of relationship like I was and you fail, the one thing about failure is failure always leave a gift, and that gift is called experience.
That's right. It's the best teacher.
All right.
It's the best teacher.
The most expensive one.
Most expensive.
Yeah, it might be expensive.
All right.
But 9 times out of 10, there are some red flags that you can say, and I say this, I've said this before on the kingdom point of view. The best thing for you to do, like he said, is prevent the situation if possible. Right. If you already know that your spouse has a different belief system than you, and you all are unequally yoked, as the word would have, that's the way the word would put it. If y'all are on two different planes, then it's probably going to be some friction there. Okay. And so you don't want to go there if you don't have to. But if you're already there, then hey, it is what it is, and you just have to be led by God. And in terms of how to make that move, the wonderful thing about God is He is a forgiving God.
Absolutely.
And He's still gonna love you.
Yeah. Our audience guests on that topic, dealing with that, started from that point of the men having, from that perspective, the issue dealing with the women. And already pretty much having their mind made up and not even leaving room to even be open, or probably can't even accept a real woman because they've never probably experienced it. I've heard in many occasions that a lot of them are already accustomed to how their parents or mother treat them, so they're looking for the same thing. And maybe that can be a good thing, or it can be a bad thing, because there are similarities, as we discussed, in cultures and race that brings about a certain expectation. And as we learn in kingdom and study, we call them unrealistic expectations. Yes. And those things lead to all divisions in any situation, the unrealistic expectations. And to be clear on this session again, because it's on many sessions, that unrealistic expectations are any expectations that are set that you've already pronounced in your mind, haven't had no communication about it. You already believe that a person can achieve something that might be unattainable because you've seen someone else do it, or you've already put them in a position hoping that they will change when you already know who they are. If you already know this is an apple, but you're expecting it to have orange behavior. See, that's an unrealistic expectation. It's definitely a fruit. That's kind of what I'm gathering from the audience member. It don't matter what race it is, we're all fruit. Why don't you just decide what type of fruit you like, but don't bash the apple for not being an orange. So that's kind of what I gather in making an ABC for the listeners, so they can understand the deeper levels on an open, broader scale on what we're saying. So making it more transparent, as we're saying, that we can't put everyone in a box, but you can have the idea. If we could train your ideas, using this example of fruit, if we can get you into a fruit fruit tray idea, then we won't have these problems on what color it is or this woman, because we ain't gonna box them up. We're gonna make them a fruit tray, and then now you decide which one your favorite fruit, because all the fruit is good. It's just which fruit do you like the best, and that doesn't diminish the banana because you like the apple more than it, or the orange because you like it more than the watermelon. And that is the point that we're trying to achieve today on the kingdom point of view, that the value system of all fruits are good. Unless, I'm gonna throw this bone in there, this wrench in there, like Mr. Butler say, unless you eat from that tree God told you not to. So yes, sir. So that's how I see that from that perspective, just as well. Any other comments on that? Because I got some more on that bone. If
I just want to say that, it's okay to have a preference, but just make sure that your governing preference is the kingdom principles.
Absolutely.
Kingdom values. Those are the things that you should be looking at in a person that Trump. You may have, and then I love what you said about the fruit tray, because when I see a fruit tray, I get a little bit of this fruit, a little bit of that fruit, and you can just taste, and you'll be pleasantly surprised sometimes at the fruit that you may like that you thought you wouldn't like.
Absolutely. All right, we got something from our audience member over there that want to tell us something again. So come on, Miss Young Lady out there, what you got for us?
Okay, I still just, I agree with everything y'all saying, but I just think the mindset and the concept of men itself don't understand morals and ethics, and that's what when I talk about our upbringing, how we was brought up in the church, and how we didn't have a decision not to go to church, and not saying that every household coming up with our peers had the same obligations, because some people never went to church. They never knew what it was to, be morally respectful and have ethics, whether it's your spouse, whether it's the person in the street, whether it's black, white, Hispanic. They wasn't raised to be just good, just to be a good person, which would explain your character. And when I say about men behaviors or whatever, and women expecting certain things and men expecting certain things, each individual itself have to be willing to give what they're expecting of the other person. I can't expect this out of you if I'm not able to give it myself. So if I'm not willing to change my behavior, the other individual will never get what they deserve. And that's the boundaries where I say about respect comes from. It's not about saying yes sir or no sir or doing this, doing that. It's just being, just doing what's ethically and morally right. If you don't want to be with a person, if you want to choose the apple and the orange and the banana, then just sit that individual down and say, hey, I got a decision, but I really just don't know which fruit I want.
All right.
Instead of disrespecting that woman and placing her on a boundary level where you dismiss her based off of, and it is disrespectful. So you just say, oh, y'all black women are all the same, or this. That's disrespectful. Don't disrespect me as a woman.
All right.
You still raised up, even if you think that, don't disrespect me as an individual, because if I'm not being disrespectful to you, I expect for men to have that same respect for women. And that's what I mean by being protective. Protecting my feelings, protecting me as an individual, protecting me because you respect the individual that I am.
All right. That's good. That's good. Yes, ma'am. I concur 100%, and that's exactly what it boiled down to in the origin on this kingdom point of view. We want to make sure that, as Mr. Butler and Miss Mosley has explained, and definitely you, young lady in the audience out there, just as well, you dropping the kingdom components and the characteristic traits that we need to hear and understand from various different levels, because that's the whole point. It has to be understood that these principles are actually universal, because once you understand them, anyone will be able to actually give you these same components, just like the young lady in the audience is telling us right now. And many people that may be listening in probably understand the same concepts when it comes to the morals and ethics of things, and respect is key, because it's definitely written, and respect is in love, although God specifically said in that particular moment that the man, the husband must love his wife and the wife must respect the husband, but that was all inclusive, because individually you have to love God, because you can't give what you don't have. And the marriage is of God, so therefore the woman already have love, and so does the man, but the man has respect because respect is in love, and vice versa. So that's where the commonality, that's what being equally yoked is already, that's what already being on one accord is, from that perspective of the male and female. And we have to always bring it to the marriage situation, because God only put the institution in place for us, the male and female, for procreation. And procreation in the right order comes in the form of marriage. So that's why the kingdom point of view have to always utilize anytime coming together as one. It is a marriage. Although we do have the world system that we have to deal with the male and female, and thinking that's why I used the fruit tray as an example, and the lady in the audience brought it out. And I was going to make that a point, that in the world system, we have already been trained to pick as many fruit as we want, and to say that they're all are mine, and then try to control them at the same time. And that mentality has been so much abused, in the idea of saying that since I'm a male, I'm a man. And since you're a female, you're a woman. But as we walked on many sessions, that if you're going to be a man, there's a certain characteristic trait. And the character was used today, and I was going to point that out, that there are characteristic traits that does have the morals and ethics in it, that makes you a man, and there are characteristic traits that make you a woman just as well. But unfortunately, we have displaced these words so much till we having this battle on trying to distinguish the difference in the man that's the spiritual man and the man that's the so quote unquote the earthly man or the world man that's caught up in a different type of system that have created his ideas, whether it's from his culture, race, or whatever it is that has made him keep this box idea that this is how a man should be based upon his environment. Yes, sir, Mr. Butler, you have something, or you just agree?
I'm listening.
Okay, you just listen. That's good. I don't want to let nobody not say nothing, but definitely that man has already allowed himself to culturally behave a certain way. But until, like we've said on the show, and like Ms. Mosley just expressed just recently, if you're not spiritually in Christ, see, now that man has no source. His source is leaning on his own understanding.
Right.
And because it's his own understanding, he's very confident in what he is coming up with, because his source is himself. And that cannot lead to anything successful or for longevity, because it could work for a little while, but it won't sustain. And so because of that, that mentality has been unfortunately like a epidemic.
Yeah.
So that epidemic of mentality has caused this dysfunction. But we're going to change them ideas, like we don't use the fruit example, and we don't tell them that they got to definitely have God first. And hopefully that we've done a good job for the person in the audience and other listeners and those on the call, because this conversation has happened multiple times, and we still will revisit it based upon our audience and the topic that they have and the angles that they coming at us with. So don't feel as if that this one recording gonna cover everything, because one thing about it, we're still moving forward, and there's so much meat left on the bone. And if you have any other ideas or comment, you can tune in by emailing at the bottom on the Kingdom Point of View, and we'll love to have you on the studio or on the call. But till then, next time, thank you for coming out on the Kingdom Point of View, and we'll see you on the next session.